Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Daily Six. I'm sitting here doing my Bible study, having some breakfast, and soaking in the life of Samson, who is not the perfect example of a great man of God, and yet he's someone whom God has used powerfully in the Old Testament in the people of Israel. Judges chapter 13, 14, 15. Get it open, and let's have a conversation. So chapter 13 tells us this repetitive cycle we've seen over and over again, the people of Israel. In verse 1, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and so that the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. Israel forgot their God. God had to release them into the hands of enemy people. They cry out to God, and God delivers them. This time, the deliverance is going to come from a young man by the name of Samson. God asked his mother to set him apart uniquely, to put him in a very unique position of holiness for the course of his entire life. But as we're going to discover in chapter 14 and 15 and 16, Samson had a sin problem. It was most basically summed up in the sin of lust, visual lust for women, his attraction to their form and their beauty. And that might give you and I pause. That if God is going to raise up a deliverer, particularly to deliver us from a very wicked system, a wicked people, and yet he's going to use a young man who's filled with sin struggle. How does this all work? Well, let's look at it. Chapter 14, verse 1. Let's see how this unfolds, and we're going to learn something about how God works, even through our brokenness. Samson went down to Timnah, and there he saw a young Philistine woman. Now, when he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman. Look at that word seen. This is going to end up being important here in just a moment. I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now go get her for me as my wife. Mom and Dad aren't pleased with this. In verse 3, they say, Father and mother replied, Isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives or among all of our people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistine to get a wife? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me. She is the right one for me. You got to go get her, Dad. This is who I want. He is convinced. It's after that, verse 7 records, that then he went down and talked with the woman, and he liked her. Do you see that? In all this, she's the one for me. He'd never even met her. He hadn't even talked to her yet. This was purely about what his eyes saw and what he wanted. Now, if we read the rest of this chapter, and I sure hope when this video ends here in a couple minutes, that you'll take 6 more minutes to read all this and bleed on over into chapter 15 and see what's happening in this life. You're going to see this woman was absolutely no good for him, and his heart got broken. We'll summarize the story that they end up getting married, and in the Jewish times, the wedding feasts, they were multi-day affairs, and all the family and all the friends are gathered, and Samson's getting a little cocky, and he throws out this riddle to her family to see if they can solve a riddle, and they can't, and days go by, and it's kind of creating all this family tension, and finally, this woman's, the Philistine woman's family comes to her and says, look, you gotta get your husband to tell us what's going on here. Solve this riddle. In verse 15, it says, on the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, coax your husband into explaining the riddle for us, or we'll burn you and your father's house to death. Did you invite us here to rob us? So you talk about family drama. Boy, Samson is marrying his way into some serious family drama. This family is so whacked out, they're willing to burn her to the ground. So, verse 16, Samson's wife threw herself on him, sobbing, Oh, you hate me. You don't really love me. You've given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer. Verse 17, she cried the whole 7 days of the wedding feast. So on the 7th day, he finally told her, and because she continued to press him, and you go on, and the whole thing turns into an absolute train wreck, family meltdown. And then ultimately, verse 20, Samson's wife was given to the friend who had attended him at his wedding. Her dad gives her away to the best man. You talk about family drama that has completely come unglued. Now, this is more than a Jerry Springer show. This is how the Lord was going to begin to use Samson a broken, sinful, confused, emotionally distraught young man caught up in all manner of disgusting family drama. God is going to use him to deliver Israel. We skipped over it, but it's back in verse 4. In the midst of all of this lust and all this trying to pull it together, God reveals in the scripture, this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines. God did not want Samson to have a sin problem, of course. But God saw a young man dedicated to him who had a struggle with lust, and God said, I know exactly what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to let him chase that lust into incredible pain in his life. But I'm going to use it. I'm seeking an occasion to get something started with the Philistines. And so he took advantage of Samson's sin problem and leveraged that to get this battle going between Israel and the Philistines. This is some tough theology, friends. But Romans 8:28 tells us that God works all things for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. God knows exactly how to leverage your sin struggle and mine. He doesn't want us to live in sin. Absolutely not. But he knows how to leverage it to keep his agenda in our lives going forward. Friends, would you give God 6 more minutes, study the life of Samson, ask the Lord to reveal to you how he's using you and your struggles to still be useful for him and his kingdom. And coming back tomorrow, we'll keep looking at Samson's life together.